Una Park stood at the window of her small room and looked out at the stars. She was very far from Earth, very far from home. The space station called Helios 7 floated in the darkness between 3 different star systems. It was a place where many species sent their children to learn together. Una had come here to teach them. She was 28 years old. She had brown eyes and black hair that she kept tied back. She was not tall. She was not strong. But she had a warm smile and a gentle voice. And she believed that every child deserved kindness. The Galactic Integration Academy was not like schools on Earth. Here, children from 100 different planets sat in the same classroom. Some had fur. Some had scales. Some had no legs at all. They spoke different languages, ate different foods, and saw the world in different ways. But they were all children. And Una loved children. Her class was called 7 Delta. She had 12 students. There were 3 Pelori children with soft blue skin and large dark eyes. They were shy and gentle and scared of loud noises. There were 4 Manari who looked like small birds with silver feathers. They loved to sing and often forgot to sit still. There were 2 Dwarven with long antennae and 6 legs each. They were very polite and always followed the rules. And there were 3 human children whose parents worked on the station. For 2 weeks, everything was peaceful. Una taught them numbers and letters. She read them stories. She helped them play together. The children were learning to be friends. Then, on the 3rd day of the 3rd week, everything changed. Una was standing at her desk when the door opened. The station administrator, a tall Dwarven named Bolvik, walked in. Behind him was a small figure that made every child in the room go silent. It was a Vethkai, cub. Una had read about the Vethkai in her training files. They came from a planet called a Death World, where everything was dangerous. The Vethkai had evolved to be the most dangerous of all. They had black scales that could stop a knife. They had 4 eyes that glowed amber in the dark. They had claws that could cut through metal and tails that could break bones. They were predators, hunters. The file said they were among the most feared species in the galaxy, but the creature standing in the doorway was not fearsome. He was small, barely reaching Una's hip. His scales were dull, not shiny. His 4 eyes were wide and filled with something Una recognized at once. Fear. The cub's ears were flat against his head. His tail was curled tight around his body. His claws were pulled in, hidden. He stood frozen, as if he wanted to run away but had nowhere to go. Administrator Bolvik cleared his throat. "Miss Park, this is your new student. His name is Kira. He is 4 cycles old. He will be joining your class." Una looked at Kira. Then she looked at her other students. The Pelori children had moved to the back of the room. The Manari had stopped singing. The Dwarven were trembling. Even the human children looked scared. They saw a predator. Una saw a little boy who had lost everything. She had read his file the night before. Kira's colony had been destroyed by a solar storm. His entire family unit was dead. His mother, his father, his siblings, his pack, all gone. He was the only survivor. He had been found 3 days later, hiding in the ruins, alone and starving. He was not dangerous. He was traumatized. Una walked toward him slowly. She did not rush. She did not make sudden movements. She remembered what she had learned about predator species. They could smell fear. They could hear heartbeats. They watched for threats. So Una made herself calm. She breathed slowly. She kept her hands visible and relaxed. When she reached Kira, she crouched down so that her eyes were level with his. "Hello, Kira," she said softly. "My name is Una. I am your teacher." The cub did not move. His amber eyes studied her face. Una could see the intelligence there, the wariness. He was waiting for her to hurt him, waiting for her to send him away. That was what everyone else had done. Yuna held out her hand, palm up. It was a human gesture of friendship, but more than that, it was a sign. She was showing him that she held no weapon, that she meant no harm. "I know you are scared," she said. "I know you miss your family. I am so sorry for what happened to you. But you are safe here. I will not hurt you. I promise." Kira's ears moved slightly. Just a little. His tail loosened the tiniest bit. "Would you like to sit with me today?" Yuna asked. "I have a spot right next to my desk. You can watch and listen. You do not have to talk if you do not want to. You do not have to do anything you are not ready for." For a long moment, nothing happened. Administrator Balvik shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable. The other children watched in silence. Then, slowly Kira reached out. His small clawed hand, so different from a human hand, touched Yuna's palm. His scales were warm, warmer than she expected. Yuna smiled. "Come on," she said. "Let me show you your seat." She stood up and walked toward her desk, and Kira walked with her. His hand stayed in hers. When they reached the desk, Yuna pulled out a small chair and placed it right next to her own. "This is your spot," she said. "Whenever you feel scared or confused, you can come here." "Okay." Kira looked at the chair. Then he looked at Yuna. Then, very carefully, he climbed onto the chair and sat down. His tail curled around the legs. His eyes never left her face. Administrator Balvik stared at them for a long moment. Then he shook his head and left without saying goodbye. Yuna turned to face her class. The other children were still frightened. She could see it in their faces and their trembling bodies. "Everyone," she said calmly, "this is Kira. He is new here, and he is going to be learning with us. I want you all to be kind to him." "Can you do that for me?" The children nodded slowly. They were still scared, but they trusted Yuna. If she said the predator cub was safe, then maybe he was. Yuna sat down in her chair. Next to her, Kira sat very still, watching everything. He did not speak. He did not move. But when Yuna reached over and gently patted his arm, his ears lifted just a little dot. It was a small thing. But it was a beginning. And Yuna Park, who had come so far from Earth to teach children she had never met, made a silent promise. She would protect this cub. She would help him heal. She would show him that he was not alone, no matter what it took. 3 weeks passed on Station Helios-7. In that time, something strange happened. Something that made the other teachers whisper and stare. Something that made the station administrators write reports and call meetings. The predator cub had bonded with the human teacher. It started small. On the first day, Kira sat in his chair next to Yuna's desk and did not move. On the second day, he followed her when she walked around the classroom. On the third day, he began to sit closer until his chair was touching hers. By the end of the first week, he would not let her out of his sight. Where Yuna went, Kira followed. If she stood at the board to write, he stood beside her. If she sat on the floor to read stories, he sat at her feet. If she walked to the cafeteria for lunch, he walked one step behind her, his amber eyes watching everything, his claws ready to come out at any moment. The other species on the station did not understand. They had never seen anything like it. "This is pack bonding behavior," said Dr. Minhee, the station psychologist. She was a human woman with gray hair and kind eyes. The Vethkai are social predators. Their cubs imprint on their pack leaders. They form deep emotional connections. It seems that Kira has decided Miss Park is his pack. "But she is human," said Administrator Balvik. His antennae trembled with confusion. Humans are prey species. They are soft. They are weak. Why would a Vethkai cub bond with a human? Dr. Minhee smiled. "You do not know humans very well, do you?" She pulled up images on her datapad. Pictures from Earth's history. Humans standing with wolves. Humans riding horses. Humans swimming with sharks. Humans holding snakes and spiders and all the dangerous creatures of their home world. Humans have been bonding with predators for thousands of years, Dr. Minhee said. They took wolves and turned them into dogs. They took wildcats and made them pets. They look at dangerous things and they think, friend. It is one of their strangest abilities, and one of their most powerful. Administrator Balvik did not look convinced, but he did not try to separate Kira from Yuna. Not yet. In the classroom, life continued. Yuna taught her lessons. She showed the children how to count and how to read. She told them stories about Earth, about oceans and mountains and forests and cities. The children listened with wonder. Even the ones who were still afraid of Kira forgot their fear when Yuna spoke. And slowly, very slowly, Kira began to change. At first, he did not speak. He only watched and listened. But one day, during a counting lesson, Yuna held up 5 fingers and asked, "How many?" Before any other child could answer, a small voice said, 5. Everyone turned. Kira's ears went flat with embarrassment, but Yuna smiled at him. "That is correct," she said. "Very good, Kira." From that day on, Kira began to participate. He answered questions. He did his work. He was not the fastest learner, but he tried very hard. And whenever he got something right, he looked at Yuna with hope in his amber eyes. Waiting for her approval. She always gave it. A smile, a nod, a gentle pat on his arm. These small gestures meant everything to him. The other children noticed too. At first, they had been afraid of Kira, but as the weeks passed, they saw how he behaved. He never threatened them. He never growled or showed his claws. He sat quietly. He shared his food. Once, when a little Pelori girl tripped and fell, Kira was the first to help her up. His claws were retracted. His touch was gentle. The Pelori girl looked up at him with her big dark eyes and said, "Thank you." Kira did not know how to respond. He looked at Yuna, unsure. "You say, 'You are welcome,'" Yuna whispered. "You are welcome," Kira repeated carefully. The Pelori girl smiled. And just like that, she was no longer afraid of him. One by one, the other children followed. They began to sit closer to Kira. They began to include him in their games. They began to see him not as a predator, but as a classmate, as a friend. But it was his bond with Yuna that was strongest. Every rest period, when the children napped on their mats, Kira would curl up beside Yuna. His head rested against her leg. His scales radiated warmth like a living blanket. And from deep in his chest came a sound, a low, rumbling vibration. "Is he growling?" A Minari child asked nervously. Yuna smiled. "No, he is purring. It means he is happy." The Vethkai did not purr for just anyone. They purred for their pack, their family, the ones they loved and trusted above all others. Kira was telling Yuna, in the only way he knew how, that she was his home. Yuna understood what this meant. She understood the weight of it. This small, traumatized cub had given her his complete trust. He had decided that she was worth following, worth protecting, worth loving. It was a responsibility she took seriously, every night. After the children went back to their quarters, Yuna stayed late to prepare lessons. And every night, she thought about Kira. She read everything she could find about Vethkai psychology. She learned their customs, their history, their ways. She learned that Vethkai cubs who lost their packs often died. Not from hunger or injury, but from loneliness. Their hearts simply gave up. They stopped eating. They stopped moving. They faded away. But Kira had not faded. Kira had found something to hold on to. Someone to hold on to. "I will not let you down," Yuna whispered one night, looking out at the stars. "I promise." She did not know that promises, in this galaxy, could be very dangerous things. She did not know that someone was watching her and Kira, writing reports, making plans. Someone who saw the bond between human and predator not as something beautiful, but as something wrong. Something that needed to be broken. But that storm was still coming. For now, there was peace. For now. There was a small predator cub purring beside his human teacher, safe and warm and loved for the first time since his world had ended. And that was enough. The man arrived on a gray morning. His name was Tae-Woong Han. He was a human, like Yuna, but that was where the similarity ended. He was tall and thin, with cold eyes and a mouth that never smiled. He wore a dark uniform with silver buttons. He carried a datapad everywhere he went. And he worked for the Galactic Education Authority. His job was to inspect schools, to find problems, to fix them. Yuna heard about him before she met him. The other teachers whispered warnings. Be careful, they said. He closes programs. He transfers students. He does not care about feelings. He only cares about rules. On his first day, Inspector Han walked through the academy without speaking to anyone. He watched. He recorded. He made notes on his datapad with quick, sharp movements. On his second day, he came to Yuna's classroom. The children were in the middle of a lesson when the door opened. Inspector Han stepped inside without knocking. His cold eyes moved across the room, taking in every detail. They stopped on Kira. The HFY cub was sitting in his usual spot, right next to Yuna's desk. When he saw the stranger, his ears went flat. His tail curled tight. His amber eyes narrowed with suspicion. Inspector Han stared at him for a long moment. Then he wrote something on his datapad and sat down in the back of the room. He stayed there for 3 days. Every lesson, he watched. Every break, he watched. He never spoke to the children. He never smiled at them. He just watched and wrote, watched and wrote. Yuna tried to ignore him. She taught her lessons as usual. She read stories. She played games with the children. She kept Kira calm, even though she could feel his tension growing with each passing hour. The cub did not like the stranger. He did not trust him, and Yuna could not blame him. On the 4th day, Inspector Han called a meeting. It was held in the administrator's office. All the teachers of the academy were there, along with Administrator Balvik and Dr. Minhee. Inspector Han stood at the front of the room, his datapad in his hand, his face expressionless. I have completed my inspection, he said. There is one serious problem that must be addressed immediately. Yuna's heart sank. She knew what was coming. The HFY cub in Class 7 Delta, Inspector Han continued. He must be removed. The room went silent. Yuna felt cold. His presence creates an unacceptable risk, the inspector said. He is a predator species. His proximity to the other students endangers them. I am recommending immediate transfer to a specialized facility on Station Korath 9. Yuna had heard of Station Korath 9. It was not a school. It was a holding center, a place where difficult children were sent and forgotten. A place where Kira would be alone again, surrounded by strangers who saw him as nothing but a dangerous animal. She could not let that happen. No. Everyone turned to look at her. Yuna stood up from her chair, her hands shaking but her voice steady. No, she said again. Kira will not be transferred. Inspector Han raised an eyebrow. Miss Park, this is not a discussion. The child is a predator. The risk is clear. The decision has been made. The decision is wrong. Yuna stepped forward. She felt the eyes of every teacher on her, but she did not care. She thought of Kira, waiting in the classroom, trusting her to come back. Kira has been in my class for 6 weeks, she said. In that time, there have been 0 incidents, 0 injuries, 0 threats. He has shown remarkable progress. His behavioral assessments are excellent. He is learning. He is growing. He is thriving. He follows you everywhere, Inspector Han said. That is abnormal behavior. That is dangerous. It is pack bonding, Una replied. It is how his species forms connections. He has bonded with me because I showed him kindness. Because I treated him like a child, not a monster. He is not a child. He is a predator. He is 4 years old. Una's voice rose. He is a baby. He lost his entire family. He was alone in the ruins for 3 days before anyone found him. He is scared and traumatized, and he has finally found someone he trusts. And you want to take that away from him? The room was very quiet. No one moved. Inspector Han's cold eyes studied Una's face. Then he turned and walked toward the door. I will see the cub now, he said. Alone? No, Una said. I am coming with you. She followed him out of the room, her heart pounding. When they reached the classroom, Kira was sitting in his chair, waiting. His ears perked up when he saw Una, but they flattened again when he saw Inspector Han. The inspector walked toward the cub. His steps were hard, his posture aggressive. Kira's scales began to rise. Now, listen here, cub, Inspector Han said, his voice sharp. I am going to... He did not finish. Kira moved faster than Una had ever seen him move. One moment he was sitting in his chair. The next, he was standing between Una and the inspector, his scales fully raised, his claws out, his 4 eyes blazing with amber fire. And from his throat came a sound. It was not a hiss. It was not a bark. It was something older, something deeper. A growl that seemed to come from the beginning of time, from the dark places where predators hunted and prey died screaming. Every non-human in the building froze. Administrator Balvik, who had followed them, pressed himself against the wall. Even the security guards, species who were supposed to be brave, backed away with terror in their eyes. Only the humans remained standing. Inspector Han, pale but still angry, and Una, who felt no fear at all. She knew what Kira was doing. He was not attacking. He was warning. He was saying, in the only language he had, what he would do to anyone who tried to hurt her. Kira, Una said softly. The cub's ears moved toward her voice. But his eyes stayed fixed on the inspector. Kira, look at me. Slowly, the cub turned his head. His amber eyes met hers. They were filled with fear, with anger, with desperate love. It is okay, Una said. I am safe. You are safe. No one is going to hurt us. Kira's growl faded. His scales lowered. His claws retracted. But he did not move from his position between Una and the threat. He was shaking. He was terrified. But he would not abandon her. Inspector Han stared at the cub for a long moment. Then he turned and walked away without another word. Una knelt down and opened her arms. Kira ran into them, pressing his face against her shoulder, his whole body trembling. It is okay, she whispered, holding him tight. I have got you. I am not going anywhere. She meant it. She meant every word. But she knew this was not over. The inspector would not give up so easily. There would be a hearing, a trial, a decision, and Una would fight. She would fight with everything she had, because some things were worth fighting for, and Kira was one of them. The hearing was held in the great chamber of station, Elias-7. It was a large room with high ceilings and cold metal walls. Seats rose in circles around a central platform, filled with representatives from dozens of species. Cameras floated in the air, recording everything. The hearing would be broadcast across the entire education network. Millions of beings would watch. Una sat at a small table on one side of the platform. She wore her best clothes, a simple blue dress that her mother had sent from Earth. Her hands were folded in her lap to hide their shaking. Across from her sat Inspector Han. His uniform was perfect. His datapad was ready. His face showed no emotion at all. In a small room behind the chamber, Kira waited with Dr. Ming-He. He was not allowed inside during the hearing, but Yuna could feel him there, could imagine his fear, his confusion. She had promised him she would come back. She intended to keep that promise. The panel of judges sat at the front of the room. There were 5 of them, 2 Dwarven, 1 Minari, 1 Pelori, and 1 human. They would decide Kira's fate. The head judge, an old Dwarven with faded antennae, spoke first. "We are here to review the case of the Vethkai miner known as Kira," he said. "Inspector Han has filed a recommendation for immediate transfer. Miss Park has filed an objection. We will hear from both parties." Inspector Han stood first. "The facts are simple," he said. "The Vethkai cub is a predator species. He has displayed dangerous behavior, including a threat display against a government official. His presence in an integrated classroom creates unacceptable risk. The other students, many of them prey species, live in constant fear. This cannot continue." He pulled up footage on the chamber's display screens. It showed Kira standing between Yuna and the inspector, his scales raised, his claws out, the terrible growl coming from his throat. "This is the behavior of a dangerous animal," Inspector Han said. "Not a student. I recommend transfer to Station Koroth 9, where specialized handlers can manage him safely." He sat down. The chamber was quiet. The head judge turned to Yuna. "Miss Park, you may respond." Yuna stood. Her legs felt weak, but she forced herself to walk to the center of the platform. She looked at the judges. She looked at the cameras. She looked at all the watching eyes. Then she began to speak. "You just saw footage of a threat display," she said. Inspector Han called it the behavior of a dangerous animal. "But I would like to show you something else." She pulled up her own footage on the screens. It showed Kira on his first day, frozen in the doorway, his ears flat, his tail curled tight with fear. It showed him sitting alone in his chair while the other children avoided him. It showed his eyes, full of pain and loneliness. "This is Kira on the day he arrived," Yuna said. He was 4 years old. He had just lost his entire family. He was the only survivor of a disaster that killed everyone he loved. He was terrified. He was alone. And he was sent to a classroom full of strangers who looked at him and saw a monster. She changed the footage. Now it showed Kira helping the Pelori girl who had fallen. It showed him sharing his food with a hungry Minari child. It showed him sitting quietly while Yuna reads stories, his eyes bright with interest. "This is Kira 6 weeks later," Yuna said. "He helps his classmates. He participates in lessons. He plays gently with children half his size. He has not hurt anyone. He has not threatened anyone, except when he believed I was in danger." She paused and looked directly at the judges. "The footage Inspector Han showed you was not an attack. It was protection." Kira saw a stranger approaching me with aggressive body language. He saw what he believed was a threat to his pack leader, and he responded the only way he knew how. The Minari judge leaned forward. "But surely this proves he is dangerous?" "Does it?" Yuna asked. "He did not attack. He gave a warning. His claws were out, but he did not use them. When I spoke to him, when I told him we were safe, he calmed down. He listened to me. He trusted me." She took a breath. "The Vethkai are not monsters. They are people. Their children feel the same things our children feel: fear, sadness, loneliness, love. Kira bonded with me because I was the first person in this galaxy who did not treat him like a beast. I showed him kindness. I showed him patience. I showed him that he mattered." She pulled up one more image. It was a picture she had taken herself. Kira curled up at her feet during rest period. his head resting on her lap, his eyes closed in peaceful sleep. "This is a child," Yuna said softly. "A child who has lost everything, who has been through more pain than most beings will ever know, and who has finally found something to hold on to." Someone to hold on to. She turned to face the panel fully. "If you take him away from me, you will not be protecting anyone. You will be breaking him. You will be telling him what the galaxy has been telling him since the day his family died, that he is a monster, that he does not deserve love, that he will always be alone." Her voice cracked, but she kept going. "Or you can let him stay. Let him learn. Let him grow up knowing that the galaxy is bigger than fear. Let him see that even a predator can find a place, find friends, find a family." She paused. "Humans have been bonding with predators for thousands of years. We took wolves and made them our companions. We took wild cats and brought them into our homes. We looked at dangerous things and we saw something worth loving. That is what I see when I look at Kira. Not a threat. Not a monster. Just a little boy who needs someone to believe in him." She sat down. Her hands were shaking again, but she did not try to hide it. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then the human judge spoke. She was an older woman with white hair and gentle eyes. "Miss Park, if Kira remains in your class, what guarantee can you give us that there will be no future incidents?" Yuna thought carefully before answering. "I cannot guarantee perfection," she said. "Kira is a child. Children make mistakes. But I can guarantee that I will be there to guide him. I can guarantee that I will teach him how to manage his instincts, how to live peacefully with others, how to be part of a community. I can guarantee that I will never give up on him." The judge nodded slowly. Inspector Han spoke again. "This is sentiment, not logic. The risk remains." "The risk of what?" Yuna asked. "The risk that a child might growl when he thinks his teacher is being threatened. The risk that he might love someone too much." "These are not dangers, Inspector. These are signs that he is healing. Signs that he is learning to trust again." She stood up one more time. "I am asking you to give him a chance. Just a chance. Let him prove that he can be more than what his species is known for. Let him show you that kindness can change a predator into a protector." She looked at each judge in turn. "Please," she said, "do not take him from me." The head judge raised his hand. "We will deliberate," he said. "A decision will be announced within 3 days." Yuna nodded and walked out of the chamber. Her legs barely held her. Her heart was pounding. She had said everything she could say. Now all she could do was wait and hope. 3 days passed like 3 years. Yuna could not sleep. She could not eat. She went through the motions of teaching, but her mind was somewhere else. Every time she looked at Kira, sitting in his usual spot beside her desk, she felt her heart break a little more. What if they took him? What would happen to him? The thought made her sick. Kira knew something was wrong. He watched Yuna with worried eyes. He stayed closer than ever, his small body pressed against her side whenever possible. At night, when the other children were asleep, he would reach out and touch her hand, as if making sure she was still there. "It will be okay," Yuna whispered to him. "I promise." But she did not know if it was a promise she could keep. On the 3rd day, the message came. Yuna was in the middle of a reading lesson when her datapad buzzed. She looked at the screen and felt her breath stop. Decision reached. Report to main chamber. Immediately, she put down her datapad with shaking hands. The children looked at her with confusion. "Class," she said, her voice barely steady, "I need to step out for a moment. Dr. Minhee will watch you while I am gone." She walked to the door, but before she could leave, a small hand grabbed her sleeve. Kira. His amber eyes were wide with fear. He knew. Somehow he knew. "I will come back," Yuna said softly. "I promise." She gently pulled free and walked out of the room. Every step felt heavy. The corridor seemed to stretch forever. When she finally reached the main chamber, her legs were numb. The room was full again. The same judges. The same representatives. The same floating cameras. Inspector Han sat at his table, his face unreadable. Yuna sat down at her own table and waited. The head judge stood. "We have reviewed all evidence," he said. "We have considered all arguments. We have reached a decision." Yuna's hands gripped the edge of the table. The motion to transfer the Vethkai Meyer known as Kira to Station Koroth 9 is denied. The word hit Yuna like a wave. Denied. He was staying. He was staying. She could not breathe. She could not move. Tears began to run down her face. The judge continued. "The child will remain at the Galactic Integration Academy under the supervision of Miss Yuna Park. However, certain conditions will be imposed. Regular psychological evaluations, enhanced monitoring, mandatory integration counseling. These conditions are not negotiable." Yuna nodded quickly. Yes, of course. Whatever you need." "Furthermore," the judge said, "we wish to note something for the record." He paused and looked directly at Yuna. "In our deliberations, we considered many factors. The risk assessments, the behavioral data, the testimony of experts. But in the end, what convinced us was something simpler." He gestured to the screens behind him. They showed the picture Yuna had presented, Kira curled at her feet, sleeping peacefully. "This child has been through unimaginable trauma," the judge said. "He has lost everything. And yet, in the presence of Miss Park, he is calm. He is peaceful. He is healing. That is not the behavior of a monster. That is the behavior of a child who has found safety." He turned to address the whole chamber. "The galaxy is full of fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of the different. Fear of those who do not look like us or act like us. But fear does not build bridges. Fear does not create understanding. Only kindness can do that." He looked at Yuna one more time. "Miss Park, you have shown us what kindness can accomplish. We hope you will continue to show us, and the rest of the galaxy, what is possible when we choose love over fear." The hearing ended. The cameras stopped. People began to file out. Yuna sat frozen in her chair, still crying, still shaking. Dr. Minhee came and put a hand on her shoulder. "Go to him," she said gently. "He is waiting for you." Yuna ran. She ran down the corridor, her heart pounding. She ran through the doors of the classroom. And she saw Kira standing in the middle of the room, his eyes fixed on the door, his whole body trembling. "Kira," she said. The cub's ears went up. Hope flickered in his amber eyes. "You are staying," Yuna said, kneeling down and opening her arms. "You are staying with me. You are not going anywhere." Kira moved so fast he was a blur. He crashed into her arms and held on tight, his face pressed against her shoulder, his claws carefully retracted so he would not hurt her. His body shook with sobs, strange, keening sounds that were the Vethkai way of crying. "I have got you," Yuna whispered, holding him close. "I have got you. You are safe. You are loved. You are home." The other children watched in silence. Then, one by one, they came closer. The Pelori girl who Kira had helped. The Minari children who had learned not to fear him. The Dorvan who had started to see him as a friend. The human children who had accepted him as one of their own. They gathered around Yuna and Kira, and for a moment, the classroom was filled with the warmth of a family. Not a family of blood. Not a family of species. A family of choice. 15 years later, Commander Kira stood on the bridge of his ship, the GSS Unbreaking Dawn. He was tall now, his scales dark and polished, his frame powerful. He was the most decorated officer in the Galactic Defense Fleet. His name was known across 100 star systems. But today, he was not thinking about battles or honors or duty. Today, a small transport shuttle was docking with his ship. He stood at the airlock, waiting. His officers watched with curiosity. They had never seen their commander so still, so focused. The door opened. A woman stepped through. She was older now. Her hair was gray. Her face was lined with wrinkles. But her eyes were the same, warm and kind and full of love. Unipark smiled at him. Commander Kira, terror of pirates and defender of the innocent, dropped to his knees before her. Unanim, he said, using the word she had taught him long ago. A word of respect. A word of love. Una reached out and cupped his face in her hands. Hands that had once held a frightened cub. Hands that had taught him to read and write. Hands that had never let him go. Look at you, she said softly. Look at what you have become. Kira's eyes shone with tears he was not ashamed to show. Only because of you, he said. Everything I am, everything I have done, it is all because of you. He pressed his forehead against her hands, just as he had done when he was small. Behind them, his crew watched in amazement. This was their commander. This was the fearsome predator who had won a dozen battles, who had faced death 100 times without flinching. Yes, this was him. And now they understood why humans were the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not because of weapons, not because of ships, not because of war. Because of love. Because humans looked at predators and saw friends. Because they looked at monsters and saw children. Because they never gave up on anyone. No matter how lost, no matter how broken. Unipark had saved a little boy with kindness. And that little boy had grown up to save the galaxy. That was the power of humanity. That was their gift. And as long as there were humans in the stars, there would always be hope for predators and prey alike. For everyone. Forever.